we go. As we talk about what this good life is, the first thing I want to do is this. Describe to you how I would describe what the good life is, and then I want to see if you would agree this would describe the good life. So if these things were happening in your life, this is the good life. That number one is this. You are content with where you are. So when you get up in the mornings, you're just content with where you are. That you know what you're doing matters that day. That you know things I'm doing today, they have significance, they matter, and I know that. That you are at peace with God. That you don't feel like you have hostility with God. You're not fearful of God. You go before Him with confidence and prayer and know you have a relationship with Him and you can do that and you're not at a conflict with Him. That you have all of your basic needs met. That your needs are met, your needs are taken care of, and those things are met. And the last one is you live each day with a purpose. That when you wake up in the morning, you kind of have, you know, what you're going to be doing that day and why you're doing it and how it fits into the eternal scheme of things. And so you know you have, you're doing something that matters, but you also know you have a purpose. If you had those 5 things describing your life, would you agree that would feel good, like you would have a good life? Are we in agreement on that? Okay, so most of us are in agreement with that. So let me describe to you some people who we believe are living the good life or who have led the good life. I'm going to give you a description. As I'm giving a description, you can try to figure out if you know who these people are. I'll let you know who they are at the end. But here's person one. Person one is, he's a world-known comedian. He had a wife and has raised 3 children. He lived in a 20,000 square foot, $35 million mansion. And he had a net worth of about $100 million. All right, that's person one. Person two, world-known model, actress, and singer. Won the Golden Globe for Best Actress, was married to a baseball star, and had a net worth of over $200 million. Okay, that's person two. Person three, he was the most influential, one of the most influential musicians in our rock industrial music. He is in a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He had several top 10 hits, and his net worth was $50 million. Okay, that's the third person. Fourth one, he is an NFL player, 12-time Pro Bowler, elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, played in 2 Super Bowls, is considered one of the greatest linebackers ever to play the game of football. And the last one is, he was a legendary American writer, won a Nobel Prize for Literature. He lived in a mansion that in today's dollars would be worth about $4.5 million. And his net estate when he died was worth about $250 million if he put into today's dollars amounts. All right? Does anyone think they know who these people are? Does anyone have guesses on some of them? Okay, here we go. Let me tell you who they are. The comedian. Who do you think that was? Robin Williams. Okay, Robin Williams was the comedian. The actress. Anyone? Now you are. Marilyn Monroe. Okay, that's the actress. The next one was the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. Anyone know? What? Kurt Cobain. Yep. See, our worship guy got Kurt Cobain. So there comes Ryan in there. Next one, the NFL guy. Yeah, lost play for NFL. Junior Seau. So played for San Diego Chargers most of his career. Went to the Patriots for the last couple years to play with the greatest quarterback ever, Tom Brady from the University of Michigan, the greatest college in the country. There you go. Had to tie that in somehow. That all comes full circle. See how that works. All right, and the last one was the American author. It was Ernest Hemingway. Okay, so Ernest Hemingway. My lips are sticking together now. Now, the reason I tell you these is these 5 people had something very much in common about their lives. Does anyone have a clue what that might be? Okay, it is. Every single one of them took their own lives. Every single one of them. Every single one of those people that we think would be living the good life, looking at their life from the outside in, every one of them took their own lives. The reason this is important for us to know is simply this. Because I want us to understand that what we often think are the keys to living a good life aren't really keys at all. They're just illusions. They're fakes. They're lies. They aren't the keys to living the good life. They're just a trick that traps us into a false fantasy that will never satisfy us and leave us always wanting for more. You see, the problem most of us have is that we believe the key to living a good life comes from acquiring good circumstances. And what I mean by that is this, that if we can acquire success, wealth, possessions, relationships, positions that we will finally achieve and we will finally feel as if we are living the good life if we can just get those things. Let me show you how that affects the way we think, all right? Here's how we think a lot of times in our world. If you are single, your key to the good life is to seek out a spouse and a happy marriage. And the world tells you that will bring the good life to you. If you are married and you are unhappy, your key to getting to the good life is to get divorced and find someone that makes you happier. That's what the world tells you. If you are married but you don't have children, your key to the good life is find a way to have children. Just find a way to have them. If you are married and you have children and they're giving you problems, you really have no key because it's not legal to kill them. All right? So for you, there's no hope. You're just stuck. All right? That's just how it is. Okay? If you're poor, your key to the good life is to do what? Get rich. Right? That's what the world tells us. We can tell you what those are. If you're rich, you find out money doesn't give you what you're looking for, and you have no idea what to do next because you're at the end of the world's solutions. Because if money doesn't solve it, you've got no hope, according to the world's system. Here's what we get wrong when we are in search of living the good life. We think that the key to living the good life comes from what's happening around us, from the external events that surround us. The problem with this thinking is it's like a drug to a drug addict. What it does is, all this drug does is it gives us a temporary reprieve from the present internal circumstances that are wrong within inside us. It dulls the pain for a moment, but it fixes nothing. And it always leaves us empty-handed, and it often leads to more pain in our lives. So today what I want to do is this. I want to share with you a foundational truth of life, and it's simply this. That learning to live the good life starts not from your external circumstances being changed, but rather from your internal condition being changed. Okay? That is a truth of life. What that means is this, is that if you don't get yourself internally set right, no change in your external circumstances will ever lead to you experiencing the good life. Because it all starts on the inside, not on the outside. At best, all it will do is mask the problems a little bit longer, but they will always return to destroy your daily life. And if you've lived in this world long enough, you have seen this over and over and over again. Unhappy people who aren't changed on the inside, can you do anything on the exterior that makes them happy people for any long period of time? No. People who gripe all the time, can you do anything on the exterior that will change that about them if they don't change what's on the inside? No, they will always gripe. Okay, the point is simply this. We are told by the world, the way you live the good life is you have to change all the exterior things. You got to chase after all these things. Get them. If you get them, you will have the good life. And the real truth of it is no, as much of that as you get, it never leads to the good life because that's not the solution. What has to change first is what's on the inside of you. That when that changes, you can start to experience the good life. So we're going to talk about that today, is where the good life starts. And I'm going to take you to a passage Paul writes in the book of Philippians, chapter 4. And in verses 12 and 13, here's what Paul writes at the beginning. He says this, I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret to living in every situation, whether it is with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. All right? Here's what's key to notice in this first part of this passage. Paul lets it be known that external circumstances have nothing to do with if you're living the good life and if you're happy and if you have things together and you feel good about how things are going. He lets you know, because what he does is he compares the two opposite sides of everything. He says this, I know how to live on almost nothing, so the very far end, and everything. I have learned the secret to living in every situation, whether I have a full stomach, everything, or I have plenty, or if I have little. And he's going, I'm making the comparisons to let you know, whether I have a lot or a little, it does not affect how I feel, and it does not affect if I'm content and if I'm experiencing a good life, because external stuff has no effect on that, because it's all about what happens on the inside. Here's what he says next. He says, for I can do everything through who? Christ, who gives me strength. You see, the foundational piece that everything else is built from for finding the good life is allowing Jesus to transform your life. That's the foundational piece. That's the only thing that can make a significant, lifelong, change in your life that will allow you to start living the good life, is allowing Jesus Christ into your life and making him the strength that you find for everything else in life, okay? That's what Paul is making clear here. Now, here's what's interesting. If you go back a chapter in Philippians, Paul has this other account. And what Paul does here is in chapter 3 of Philippians, what he does is he goes through his life and he explains to you how he has lived the good life in the world sense, okay? And he goes through and he talks about basically, if you want success, I had it. If you want money, I had it. If you want positions, I had it. If you want people to view you in certain ways and look up to you, I had it. I had everything. Everything you can have. I had the right pedigree. I had the right teachers. I had the right schools I went to. I had everything to the people in my context, to the Jews. That's who he's speaking to. In my context, I had everything you can possibly have to live the good life. That's significant to know when you read the next part he writes. And here's what he says in verses 7 through 9. He says this, I once thought these things were valuable. Okay, let me stop you for a second. We can probably all say the same thing. Or we're still saying the same thing. Is the things the world tells us will bring us the good life we find valuable. He says, I once thought these things were valuable, but now I consider them worthless because of what Christ has done. Okay, so he goes, all that stuff I once saw valuable, I now consider it's just worthless to me. He says, yes, everything else is worthless when compared with the infinite value of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For his sake I have discarded everything else, counting it all as garbage, so I could gain Christ and become one with him. Okay, would you say, Paul makes it pretty clear, that he would choose Jesus over anything of this world? Right? That's what he says here. He's letting you know, if you read the full context, so if you want to go back today sometime and read verses 1 through 6, he's letting you know, hey, I speak with some type of credibility here because I had all the stuff the world tells you will bring you joy and will bring you riches and make you feel content. And here's the weird thing. If you read Paul's accounts before he became a Christian, I actually think he thought he was living a good life. He was actually like, I'm actually doing pretty good here. All right? But now in this passage, he has found Jesus. This is later in his life. He has found Jesus, a relationship with him. He's been transformed by him. And now he's going, man, I might have even thought that was decent at the time. But now that I know Jesus, this stuff is worthless. Like, I don't even care about this stuff. There's no value in it at all. And I will get rid of all of it. I will give it all away just to have Jesus. Because this is the thing that can't be taken from me. This stuff all can. This never can. And you see Paul going, this is the thing I live for, not this. This is where I'll find the good life, not this. And Paul has a very clear understanding of it. Now, take a step back further. Jesus, in Matthew chapter 10, he makes this truth very clear to us, and he lets us know, hey, if you want to find the good life, I'm going to tell you how to find it. And here's what he says. He says in chapter 10 of Matthew, verse 39, if you cling to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for me, you will find it. All right? So Jesus comes out and he says, you want to know how to live the good life? Let me tell you how to do it. If you want to live for yourself, if you want to live for the things of the world, guess what? You're not going to find it. And you're going to eventually lose your life. But if you really want to find it, give up all that stuff for me. Make me the centerpiece of your life. Make building a relationship with me the number one priority in your life. And guess what? You'll find that life that you are looking for. That's kind of what he sets out there. Is he just goes, you want the solution? Here it is. The solution is me. Follow me. Know me. And if you would do that, no matter what the external circumstances are, you will live the good life. All right? That is Jesus' words to us. You see, you can only truly experience a good life if you have first built your relationship with the author of life and are motivated by his motivations. Everything else is just counterfeit. Now, you might be asking, what's that even look like? All right, and this is the hard part to put into words, what it looks like to be living a good life. So let me just do the best I can for me of what that means, because if you ask me today, am I living a good life? I'd say yes. Does that mean all my external experiences and stuff are great? No, those things aren't always great. My marriage isn't always great. I don't always have all the money that I wish. Doesn't mean I don't have bills. Doesn't mean I don't have these things or I have horrible things happen. I don't have bad news come into my life. I have all those things. But if you ask me, am I living a good life? I have my 2 kids. And they're hard to keep the good life going. But yeah, I have all those things just like you do, okay? But if you ask me, am I living a good life? I'd say absolutely yes. And the best way I could boil it down to is simply this. Every day I wake up, I know I have a purpose and I have a function, and I know I'm working for the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and the author of life and the one who created this universe. And I know that I am representing him to this world that I interact with. So everything I do has eternal significance. And because of that, I don't care about the external things, because in any external discomfort, I can find a way to glorify him and try to work for him in it. Now, here's the hard part I had with it. I'm in ministry, which is totally different than most of your lives. Okay, I get that. My life is completely different. I work here at the church. I'm supported by you at the church. I get to do this full time in my life. It's different. I'm mostly surrounded by believers or people who are interested in religion. But there was a window in my life in my 20s when I wasn't, when I was just in school and I'd just become a new believer. And the thing is, even then I had the same mindset. So some of you know this. I told you the circumstances I was working in there. I worked for Pizza Hut in inner city Lansing while I was going to school, and I delivered pizzas for them. My manager that I worked under at that point was a drug dealer, and we ran drugs out of Pizza Hut. Not me, they ran drugs, let me put it that way. I was a new believer. One of the things we did is we delivered pizza, and some of them delivered drugs on the side as well, and that was the operation they went through. And I worked amongst them, and it was some of the funnest times I had in my life. They were the most pagan people in the world, but I was just freshly coming out of being a total mess myself. But it was a great opportunity because every time I went there, I knew I was working for God, and I had an opportunity to potentially share Christ with someone or try to have a positive impact on their life for the glory of God. And so every day I went to work, I loved it there, even though I was surrounded by total chaos. And you're going, this is not right, and I hope if the cops come take this place down, they understand I never did this. One of the things I always said, one of the most effective ways I had with them, is most of the drivers were guys. I think there's one other girl that was a driver, but most of them were guys. We had the strip club in our delivery area, and the strip club was like the prized place you wanted to go because you had to go inside the strip club, and you got good tips when you went there. So you got like big, huge tips, like $10 if you took like a $20 pizza. And back then, that was like huge money. So everybody wanted to take those, and when they would come up, and the way we always did is you got your tabs up, and you couldn't. It was just the line you came in. So I would sit there, and my tab would come up, and I'd be like, guys, anyone want to trade? And they'd be like, which one you got? And I'd be like, deja vu. And they'd be like, oh, yeah. I'll trade you whatever. I'd be like, they're like, you sure you're trading? I'm like, yep, I can't. They're like, why aren't you going? I'm like, yeah, I'm dating a girl. I'm a Christian. It's not where I should be. That's not something I want to be involved in, stuff like that. And they're like, ooh, we'll take that. Through those situations and through working hard in those situations, even my work represented Christ, gave me opportunities to share my faith early in my faith. I've been a Christian for 6 months. Sharing my faith of why I'm a Christian, why I believe in Jesus Christ. And those are 3 years of some of the funnest times I had living in a culture that totally hated everything about what I believed at that point, but getting to stand for Christ. That's what Paul was doing. If you read Paul's account, much more to a greater degree than me, he gets beat, he gets pounded, he gets left for dead, he gets shipwrecked, everything can happen to him, and he's going, this is the greatest thing I've ever got to do. Okay? That's the good life. That's what happens when Jesus is at the center of your life. Now, the reason we're talking about this foundational truth of the good life being built upon having a relationship with Jesus Christ today is simply this. Everything else we discuss in this sermon series in the coming weeks, if you don't first establish a relationship with Jesus Christ, all it is work. It's something new to add to your life. It's one more thing to add into your list of things that you try to do so that you can be a good Christian. All right? And it just becomes something of work to you. If you're right with Jesus, though, what happens is everything we talk about in the following weeks will bring life into your life. It will be something that inspires you. It will be something that lifts you up, and it will no longer be seen as work to you. And that's when the good life begins. So I'm going to close today reading from Colossians 1:10 because I'm going to start the rest of the sermon series reading this scripture that I think displays and talks about the good life. And here's what it says in Colossians 1:10. He says, then, and so he's talking to Christians here, then the way you live will always honor and please the Lord. Your lives will produce every kind of good fruit. And I think here he's probably talking about the fruits of the Spirit. So love, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. He's talking about the fruits of the Spirit. And he says, all the while, you will grow as you learn to know God better and better. That's the good life. When you get that down in the internal side of you, instead of worrying about the external, guess what? This stuff doesn't mean as much as you once thought it might. It's not as important to your happiness as the world tells you it will be. And you can live in horrible circumstances and have the joy of the Lord and say, I'm living the good life. Why? Because I know Jesus is my Lord and I'm working for him. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father,